You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the former Conservative minister and broadcaster Anna Soubry and the PR consultant Alex Deane. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. It's not too much to mask is the headline on the front of the Metro, as masks are set to become mandatory again in shops and on public transport in England. Meanwhile, the Telegraph warns new requirements for everyone, including children, to isolate if they come into contact with Omicron. Cases will cause chaos in schools. The Guardian says that the new restrictions are likely to come with a widening of the booster jab programme to stem the spread of the virus. And the Times says every adult is to get a booster jab to try to save Christmas. That's also the lead in the Daily Mail. The Mirror takes a similar line with the fight to save Christmas. The Financial Times leads on the flurry of new global travel restrictions introduced amidst concerns over Omicron, despite opposition from the World Health Organization. And The Sun says Prince Charles has called in lawyers over claims in a new book that he is racist. And we are joined tonight by Anna Soubry and Alex Deane. Welcome to you both. Let's kick off with the Metro. Their headline, it's not too much to mask. These are the new restrictions that are being brought in to wear masks on public transport and in shops, etc. Alex?
Yeah, the Prime Minister announced this, many people will have seen, at 5 o'clock on Friday. It seems to me this is a peculiar one, not least because it doesn't apply to bars and restaurants, nor should it, I think, but given that you're going to be eating and drinking. But given there are so many mixed venues and places where people both eat, drink and shop, shopping malls and centres that have both restaurants and bars and shops and so forth, I think this one's going to be rather difficult to enforce. Moreover, it does seem funny to me because the same people who are now telling us to wear masks, the same scientists, are the people who told us a year ago, 2 years ago, that wearing masks had little to no difference to the spread of viruses, and that we wouldn't need to wear masks. And the people suggesting we should had got it wrong.
But a lot has happened since then, Alex. So we've learnt a lot more about the virus, and it wasn't known at that time.
No, what's happened has been good because we've been vaccinated. And we were told that being vaccinated was going to be the way out of this situation, not the way into a whole new world of bureaucratic rules and more mask wearing.
Anna?
Look, I'm sorry. What's the problem with wearing a mask?
If you're asking me, the answer is that it's dehumanising and unpleasant.
Well, look, we either are serious about this or we're not. And I listen to scientists. None of us, just a minute, Alex, none of us particularly like wearing a mask. But we wear a mask because the scientific advice is that it helps stop the spread. And that's all that matters at the moment, is about protecting the NHS and saving lives. And I don't understand people who put belts on when they get into their car, quite properly. If you ride a motorbike or a scooter, put a helmet on. Sensible measures to protect yourself. What is wrong in the middle of a pandemic with wearing a mask? Why is it being turned to some sort of status thing to show how either right-wing or manly you are?
I don't think it's to do with neither my manliness nor my right-wingness. I was trying to make a point about the fact that the rhetoric that you've just used about protecting the NHS and 3 weeks to flatten the curve and so forth, that worked 18 months ago. It worked even a year ago. I think now, broadly speaking, it doesn't convince people. And the fact you feel the need to say it more aggressively and personally perhaps underlines the fact that it's less convincing than it was.
Because you've still not explained what is wrong with wearing a mask, to which you would say, well, it's bureaucratic.
No, I said
it's completely lost on me. If somebody tells me to wear 3 masks to keep this infection at bay, I'll wear 3 masks.
But Alex, you're saying that it's dehumanising. But if it could potentially save lives, isn't it worth the effort?
My point is, there's going to come a time when this rhetoric, if it saves one life, it's all worth it, is going to erode itself into nothingness. This precautionary principle will have us in the end locked down in our own homes, wearing masks and so forth for the rest of our lives. There's going to have to come a point at which we accept there's a certain amount of risk we accept in life. Otherwise, well, I don't know what Anna's perspective is, but if you say you're going to wear 3 masks forever, I mean, there has to come a point when we accept that there's a certain amount of risk we put up with in life.
Anna, let's move.
We're not talking about risk. We're talking about saving lives and protecting our NHS. And that's not empty rhetoric. That's reality. And if wearing a mask reduces the infection rate, I don't see what the problem is.
Let's move on to the Mirror, and they're saying the fight to save Christmas. Presumably, Alex, you believe that it's not appropriate to wear masks in social settings like restaurants, etc., which are exempt from the new restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, the government hasn't said that, so and let's hope it doesn't. I mean, Christmas on the one hand will, of course, feel like an arbitrary time, and it has different meanings for different people. But I will point out this feels eerily like last year when we had a conversation about saving Christmas and it'll all be okay by Christmas. The trouble with setting deadlines like this is that when you miss them, people tend to remember. And then when you set the same deadline again a year later, they certainly remember it. Are we going to be saying, let's have the fight to save Christmas and 3 weeks to flatten the curve in 2024, 2025? Because it seems to me that Anna's logic means we would.
Anna, do you think that we should be wearing masks in restaurants?
Well, I think that there's a good argument for it, but I would be always guided by the science. Look, I think the real problem about masks is, notwithstanding that we have a Prime Minister who has a problem in wearing a mask and too many Conservative MPs who seem to have a problem with wearing masks, but also if you go into a lot of shops, if you go into other public places, you're getting mixed messages from a lot of the staff because they're not wearing masks either. So one of the things I would say is we need clarity. I mean, I don't always wear a mask, so I forget to take it with me. And if you go into a shop, if you go into a place and people working there aren't wearing them, you kind of think, oh, well, there's no point. So we need clarity. And that's the thing about good public health messaging. It needs to be good and clear. But, I don't get this thing about, we've got to save Christmas and all the rest of it. What we have got to do is make sure, and it's not empty rhetoric, we need to make sure that we stop the spread of the virus in a way that damages our NHS and it causes more people to die. And at the moment, we have this new variant. We don't know a lot about it. So let's be guided by the scientists who certainly know more, I put my hands up, than I know. And I don't have a problem in following their guidance. But this idea that we're going to be locked up in our homes until 2025 and all the rest of it, I think that's a gross exaggeration. As I say, what we need is good, clear leadership. We need good, clear public health messages. And we need to listen to the advice of the experts in this, the people that know far more than we do.
Meanwhile, Alex, the Telegraph tells us that the Omicron variant will lead to chaos in schools because potentially children will be required to self-isolate if coming into contact with those who might have been exposed to Omicron.
Absolutely. And think of the difficulties, the challenges and the unhappiness that has been caused in many young lives by the precautions and measures that we've taken coronavirus already. 2 years of education have been somewhere between stymied and wrecked for young people in this country as we've tried to do what Anna has rightly set out and tried to lessen the effects of the virus. The notion now that people should be forced into isolation if they may have come into contact with somebody because of this new variant seems to me that the Telegraph is right. It's going to cause chaos in schools. And you know what my fear is? There's always going to be a new variant. Are we saying that we're going to disrupt education forever and a day now because of this?
The implications are that thousands of healthy children might have to stay at home, Anna, but is there any other way around this?
I think that's the problem. What is the alternative? Look, we don't know enough yet about Omicron, so we can't overly speculate. Obviously, people are nervous and worried. But I absolutely agree with Alex. The impact that this awful 18 months, 2 years almost has had on many people's lives, especially young people's lives, has been terrible for them. And the 2 years of disruption to their education, the effects on mental health and so on and so forth. But time and again, we come back to, well, what is the alternative? And the alternative is not just to let viruses rip, because we know that it's not just that people die, it's also that it has this huge impact, as it's already had on our NHS, which then affects all our lives. But I do care about people dying, and I do care about the impact on the NHS as much as I care about the impact on youngsters. So it's all about balance and trying to get the right balance, keeping the virus in check, keeping people safe as much as we possibly can.